Good evening, Brendan. How are you?
Good night. How are you, Oli? And I feel like saying
Night.
welcome to Bogotá Nights, sponsored by Coca-Cola, because that does seem that little jingle there. It's wonderful. I do like it. How has your week been, by
I'm
the
a big
way?
fan.
Yeah.
My week has been no sort of paid work, but lots of very, very irritating unpaid work, like, running around chasing various people to do various bits and bobs and picking up things because it's in my head that obviously from next week a lot of stuff's just going to be shutting down, so I need to have stuff ready for them. What
Yeah,
about
fair
you?
point. And of course, folks, Ollie has been renovating his house for the last few months, basically throughout the duration of this program that we've been
Pretty
doing
much.
since September. Yeah, so maybe in the new year, if the restrictions get lifted, we'll have a house warmer and we'll invite all our dedicated viewers to the show. Yeah, we look forward to that.
uh,
But you were
yeah,
talking about what?
we'll invite them to my house, will we?
Yeah, of course.
That seems fair.
I like to invite people to others' houses. But you were saying about you were doing unpaid work. Well, I was going to say welcome to my world, Ollie. But would you believe this week I didn't go to Migracion offices? Isn't that
Hey!
fascinating? Onwards and upwards. Well, we might as well get on with things because we do have, as ever, a jam-packed show to look forward to. And it is the 17th of December, the second night of the novenas. So I hope we're not interrupting the prayers, but you can take an hour out of that. And this is, appropriately enough, program number 17 of Colombia's only live and interactive English language chat show, and our final Bogotá Nights of 2020 as it is. We will be back in 2021 with a bang, don't worry. And while we reviewed this turbulent year last week, tonight we're doing a bit of crystal ball gazing and looking ahead to what we can expect in 2021. From a Bogotá perspective, will we see the capital get back to business as usual in the next 12 months across all sectors of life, or have some things changed forever? Nationally, will tourism numbers recover to something close to their impressive pre-coronavirus figures? Could a more globally minded White House actually spell trouble for Colombia? And will we see the Copa América take place here in 2021 as it was meant to this year? We'll be addressing all that and much more. And as ever, we love to hear your thoughts. Send us a message right now using the live comment facility. Or if you're watching this recorded, you can send a message via the medium on which you're viewing us, or simply send a tweet to @BogotAPost. Before that, it is our take on the week's big talking points. And Ollie, not only, to borrow from the famous song, is it beginning to look a lot like a coronavirus restricted Christmas, the new anti-COVID measures introduced here in Bogotá and across the country could be seen as the thin end of a harsher wedge. Are we going to end the year locked up in our houses again?
Hard to say, Brendan. I think there's definitely, one has to think that whether it's after Christmas or if it gets shelved to after New Year, one has to, sorry about that. Ow! Oi! Dogs! Leave each other alone. Sorry, my dogs are just having a little evening fight. Anyway, and they do say don't put your hands in the middle of dogs biting at one another. Anyway, yes, what was I? Yes, you do have to wonder that if it's after Christmas, which looks likely, or all the way to after New Year, it does. Everything seems to be pointing towards there being further restrictions on the way, one way or another. I think Colombia's being fairly good in, I think, being relatively realistic about what's possible here. So they're saying that they're not going to go knocking on doors. They're not going to be investigating novenas, things like that. I mean, I don't think there's any will from the police to be doing that, and I think that would be phenomenally unpopular. So, fair play to them for that, for example.
Did you sit down at lunchtime this afternoon and read through, is it about an 18-page decreto that was released from the mayor's office? And of course, one of those rules is that you can only have 10 people in one household. And is it restricted to the number of households? How exactly does it work?
Well, it is quite complicated. The official guideline is that you shouldn't be seeing your extended family. Like, you shouldn't be traveling around a long distance. Again, whether that's going to be followed is very hard to, hard to predict. I would suggest that there's going to be limited kind of acceptance of these rules if we think about them as being, if we think about how strict the rules are. I think we're going to be seeing 50-60% compliance at best. I can't see anything that tells me that Colombians are going to comply with this 100%. Nothing at all.
Yeah. Well, obviously, your dogs aren't in favor of it anyway. They seem quite animated about the new restrictions.
Yeah, sorry about that.
But no, that's fine. The only thing I was going to say, Oli, like in fairness, once again, it seems, and hats off, I guess it depends on your opinion, but you know where I stand on this, that Claudia Lopez seems the kind of most rational of all, of all the big cities anyway, mayors, because there's no curfew as far as I know. And I read something from a group of medics in Medellin saying, I mean, what's the point in implementing a curfew from midnight to 6 a.m.? They said, if anything, the curfew should be where you have the crowds doing all the shopping and going, obviously in Medellin, the lights by the river are a big attraction. That's where you should have bigger restrictions, at least. That curfew in those 6 hours in the morning is kind of a waste of time. It's like maybe telling themselves, we're doing something, but is it actually addressing the issue?
Yeah, and like you say, it's interesting that Bogotá, almost alone among the bigger cities, has seemed to be a bit more flexible, a bit more realistic. We're seeing in Cali that there's ley seca coming in, limited ley seca, and of course the whole country is having this 10 a.m. Drinking shutdown.
10 p.m. I hope. Or
yes. 10 a.m. would be a bit unusual, yeah. Yes, a 10 p.m. drinking shutdown, which, I mean, again, it seems like one of those things that's designed, you can still go to the pub, you just have to go home a little early. Not the end of the world. You'll still be able to get drunk with your family or friends in the novena period, so it's not a complete ley seca. I do wonder where Claudia's going on this. Are we going to see heavier January restrictions to balance this? Or is it a case that there was enough work done earlier that we can be, when I say earlier, I mean kind of, May, June, that we can be a little bit more relaxed now? Who knows?
Yeah, well, I mean, all the evidence points to the fact that the higher transmission rates of this virus are inside places. So when you've got a Bogotá with sun, I mean, I know there's been a few heavy downpours, I think, down your end of the city, not my end of the city, but relatively now the last few weeks, or the next few weeks, you can expect sun, probably until February. And I know we're probably going to be talking about that in our review of the year, or not review of the year, I said looking forward to 2021 because
preview.
Yeah, exactly. But the thing is, if we're asking people to stay in their houses, that kind of might seem counterproductive if we've got lovely weather in a Bogotá where there are fewer people about. If a lot of residents here head off to their fincas or whatever for the next few weeks. So you'd imagine if this kind of sensible, what I feel and what I think you feel is a rather sensible approach from Claudia Lopez, if we maintain it. And obviously it will all depend on the figures in terms of the intensive care unit, beds occupation and things like that. But that 10 p.m. restriction, there is, well, it's not a loophole, but it's just you can actually stay in the bar or in the place you're in, just they won't be able to sell you alcohol. That's the only thing.
Yeah, and actually, I suspect they may be, when you talk about loopholes, I suspect they might be able to give you alcohol. I mean, I wouldn't be massively surprised if a few people tried a fast one and said, oh, well, we're playing expensive games of Rana, which, costs 3,000 every time you want to have a round on the old frog table. And coincidentally, you get a free beer.
Yeah, I guess if you have the decreto says you can't sell alcohol, that's a fair point. But yeah,
No, they're not selling alcohol. They're giving it away. Who knows? I don't think you'd get that one past a policeman. But I think what is relevant here is absolutely, if you want to go and get drunk in your house, if you want to kick off a party, I don't think the police are going to get involved. I don't think they're going to be knocking on people's doors. They've said explicitly, we're not going to go into people's houses chasing down novenas. So we might see a paradoxical thing where we get a lot of people getting to 10 p.m. and saying, right, all back to mine. And, that could end up being counterproductive. Who knows?
Yeah, exactly. I'll probably have an early test on that, Oli, on Saturday. I've been invited to a baptism privilege that I am on Saturday night. So I don't know how many people are invited, but I imagine it's going to be at least a couple
Wait, hang on. There's no religious people in my family, but baptisms obviously are for like little children, right? Or is this like a later in life baptism?
No, this isn't a late conversion. It is a child who's just about to complete.
And they're having it at night.
Well, I think it's being baptized at 3, but the get together afterwards, there's like food.
Right, okay.
The grandfather of the child has put on.
And it'll be running on till 10, will it? And beyond.
Oh, well, it will come 10 o'clock, then everyone will stop, I'm sure. No, I mean, I don't want to be facetious about it. I mean, I know these rules are in for reasons, whether you agree with them or not. But I'm pretty sure there will be a test on that because, well, while these people who have invited me are practically my Colombian family, I could say, for the last few years. They're not blood family. But anyway, it will be an early test. We'll see how it goes. But as we said, here in Bogotá, it's a lot lighter, if I can use that term, than other places. Certainly, Cúcuta seems to be experiencing a bit of a spike, and you mentioned Cali as well. But then you talked about traveling, and people shouldn't be traveling. I saw a headline in Blue Radio, and they were advising people of routes that are damaged or whatever due to still damaged after the November rains and the winter rains. So obviously, we're still expecting lots of people to go on the move, I would say, in the next week or so.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Peru's taken a slightly different approach. They've kind of said, you mustn't do this and you mustn't do that. It just seems to me like a complete waste of time because people then won't follow that rule and they'll just not follow other rules. And I think, again, it's a nice attitude, I think, from the Colombian state to say, we're advising you don't do this, but it's your lookout. Because trying to control that would be an absolute nightmare. Yeah.
Okay, obviously, Oli, but this time last week, there seemed to be a lot of positivity in your neck of the woods, as in your home country, the UK, and in Ireland, with the rollout of a vaccine. It already happened in the UK. It's imminent in Ireland and other European countries. That optimism has certainly subsided in the UK, with London now in a tier 3, the highest tier lockdown, if I can call it that. And sorry, just looking at a comment there. Yeah. So that optimism subsided. Here, I guess the hope is that the vaccine will be rolled out early next year. And the Colombian government has put aside $18 million US. In the great scheme of things, that doesn't seem an awful lot for the purchases of these vaccines. So have they got them at a discounted rate? Is this day una vaccine prices?
Well, it looks yeah. Well, actually, in a way, it is. I mean, it's almost like unmarked. You know how you buy like the no-name aspirin, commonly in the drugstores here, white labels, I think they call them, something like that. And yeah, basically, that's what we're getting. We're looking to get hold of from Oxford AstraZeneca, which they seem to be standing firm on their commitment to giving it to developing countries at cost. So, fair play to them for sticking with that.
Yeah, okay. Well, again, we'll be addressing the rollout of the vaccine when we're looking ahead to 2021. And
it's worth pointing out here, I think, as well, that the AstraZeneca vaccine, I won't be surprised to see the Pfizer vaccine becoming semi-available, not maybe very much of it, but some of it will end up getting down here. So I think that'll be available for people that can spend the money. what we'll be giving out, government-wise, will be AstraZeneca, and that doesn't involve stupid chilling. It doesn't involve, really specific delivery. So, this is really the vaccine that Colombia should be using. I mean, how quickly is it going to get to Colombia? That's the real question.
Yeah, I guess we'll wait and see. I'm not too optimistic on that. I think you're a little bit more optimistic than I am, but we'll see what happens. It might hopefully prevent them from spraying the masses in San Victorino. I don't know if you saw those images earlier in the week. They decided, just spray disinfectant, and as much
fumigation.
The bad press that the World Health Organization has got in some quarters this year. I won't say in all, but one of the things they did say early on was this outdoor fumigation was kind of one of the least effective things you could do against the virus. So whoever came up with the smart idea down in Zambia, or maybe they were just having a laugh, let's spray a load of people and see can we disperse the big crowd. What
I would say is quite important here, though, Brendan, is there is a bit of a difference between perception and effectiveness. That while it might not be very effective, if it's perceived to be effective, that might have other benefits.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying on that regard, but it's like somebody saying, if the virus is spreading, it's like, well, you can think away your cancer. Just think positively, and it will go away. I mean, if the virus is spreading and that's not doing any good. Anyway, no, I mean, I'm not being facetious about that, but there are these people. Well, just think positively, and everything will be wonderful and wonderful. But we will be positive. We will be positive. But Oli, a case, and we were talking about this yesterday, and you were saying to me how in this country, as we switch tack here, the amount of people that go missing seems remarkable. Yeah. I mean, we've had a case. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's illustrating that people often say you don't look at the homicide rate in Colombia. You look at homicide and missing people. I mean, a friend of ours and a contributor to the Bogotá Post, a fascinating man, one of our best writers, in fact, Steve Hyde. He's worked all over the country in various aid organizations, and he always says, basically cartels or guerrilla or paramilitaries or whatever armed group you have, they operate in one of two ways. One is intimidating people, which means the murder rate's going to go up massively, and there'll be headless corpses all over the place. Or they just get rid of people and they don't want any fuss, in which case you don't look at the murder rate at all, because that'll be suspiciously low, and instead you look at missing peoples.
Okay. But this particular case in Cedritos, like why has this one made the news? Is it simply because it happened in Cedritos? Yeah,
we're talking Novena, so Carrera 9 with 143. I mean, that's an area that perhaps you don't necessarily expect children to go missing so much. And I find it quite interesting. I mean, whenever I've traveled around Colombia, I've almost always seen signs up saying missing. But, just walking the dogs fairly recently, there's signs up everywhere, this person missing, that person missing. It does seem unusual, the age. I mean, we're talking about a very young girl. Well, we're talking about, a pre-teen, let's say. So what is she, 12? This is 12 or 10. Let me just check that, because we should get that. I think it's a combination of where she's gone missing, her unusually low age, and also the fact that it just seems to be a mystery. She seems to have left the conjunto and disappeared. 12 years old, yeah.
Yeah, that's quite young, because I know last week, just after the Noche de los Velitas, there was another case of a girl went missing. She was closer to 18, 17, I think she was, and she turned up and nothing had happened. To me, reading between the lines and maybe putting 2 and 2 together and getting 5, but it seemed like she might have just headed off somewhere for a night out, maybe with her her new boyfriend or something. But yeah, these cases of missing people, I guess you're always worried when you hear about them here in terms of what exactly is behind the story. But Oli, we'll move on, and I just want to say again, guys, if you want to get in touch, we are looking for your thoughts in terms of how you think 2021 is going to pan out for Colombia. Will we get back to normal? Obviously, a lot is dependent on the success of vaccines, or will people just start to live with coronavirus? But we'll be talking about all of that in terms of the economy, education, tourism has obviously been badly hit. So do send us your thoughts. And we do want to say hi to Giselle, who's listening in from the Big Apple, New York City. So we are very much international here on Bogotá Nights. Thanks, Giselle, for getting in touch. And I'm taking it that you have Colombian heritage, or you're probably a Colombiana living in the Big Apple, in the snowy Big Apple as well, I believe. So do let us know how it's going there. Oli, I just want to mention, though, have you seen that Congress yesterday approved what effectively is gender quotas, that if in future elections, if you have more than 5 candidates in the list, they have to be 50-50. Where does Oli Pritchard stand on what one could call positive discrimination?
Well, I mean, I think it is positive discrimination. I don't think it's, it's not calling it positive discrimination. Okay. I mean, I think that's pretty nakedly what it is. I'm in two minds about this. Philosophically, I would like to say that, these things shouldn't be necessary. And you will always have that suspicion, I think, of, somebody saying, well, has this person only been put up because they're female? We've had mixed results with it in the UK. So there's been some parachuting people into ridiculous seats. There's been a couple of kind of false women put onto lists. So they've had a couple of lists where basically, women who have no chance of entering the running, really. They've literally just been put there to make up the numbers. So I think when it's entered into with bad faith, it can have some pretty bad results. Having said that, and what I would balance about, obviously we shouldn't have the need for this, but given that women are systematically blocked in Colombia a lot, this could be a good way to, there's an old thing about Norway and Sweden did this a long time ago, and the short-term effects were pretty negative for those reasons. People entered into it in bad faith. What they found was long-term, it kicks around a lot better, and they start having much better results, partly because you encourage women at all levels of an organization, partly that you open yourself up to sort of new ideas, new ways of looking at things. What I would say in Colombia is this: Colombia has quite a relatively good record. In fact, I would say Latin America isn't terrible. I mean, given the levels of misogyny we often see in society, when it comes to politicians, they're actually not that bad. I mean, we've got a female mayor in Bogotá now, a female vice president.
I was just going to say,
a few big names.
Hold up a sign. Where is our female vice president? It's like they've tucked her away in a box for throughout this pandemic. I mean, I'm not being
probably good, isn't it? I mean, that meme of her talking to Chocoano children is fantastic. That image of her, literally looking down at the kids on the floor. That kind of, I think, epitomizes a kind of soulless, uncaring political class. But anyway. The one I'm talking about. You're being a bit harsh.
Yeah, you're being a bit harsh. And she's... I just think...
But actually, jokes aside, I mean, I support feminism. I don't know that I call myself a feminist. I don't really want to get into that. I don't necessarily think men should. But what, I mean... One thing Colombia might have to look forward to, and this is quite a serious point, somebody like Marta Lucia Ramirez could be the first female president. I think it's interesting. We had this problem in England, exactly the same problem, that our first female prime minister, political head. Obviously, the Queen's always been the head of state for, literally my mother's whole life. But I think it's really interesting that somebody who's not feminist, who's not progressive, somebody who's definitely not somebody that would be championed by the Macarena or Parkway, has a pretty realistic chance of being the first female president. Just like Margaret Thatcher.
Something we're going to be addressing in our preview of 2021, because the contest, the race for Casa de Nariño is going to heat up next year, and we will be trying to see where the prospective candidates might come from. I was going to say, though, Oli, perhaps first episode of 2021, we'll get Jordan Peterson on. He's always a good man to bring on when talking about gender quotas and women's rights and things like that. Quite opinionated. Anyway, going to move to sport, Oli. We've got the final of La Liga Águila, and it kind of, okay, I know we're in a pandemic and no fans can go to the games, but we have a Bogotá team in the final, Santa Fe, not my favorite one, but against América de Cali, so a kind of a Clásico final in many ways, but it doesn't seem to be registering that much of a beat, or am I just hanging around with too many Millonarios fans?
No, I'd say the same. I mean, when I first, my first sort of full football season in Colombia ended with Santa Fe winning the championship, first one in a long time. And yeah, that really kicked off. It doesn't feel, in the same way that Christmas doesn't really feel like it's here in some ways, because we're spending more time indoors, I suspect, because there's fewer places to go out on the lash. I don't know.
Yeah, good point. Well, just about that La Liga Águila final, for those interested, the first leg taking place in Cali is this Sunday, and the final is going to be after Christmas, which is a new departure. Usually it's already wrapped up by about this week. It's kind of usually on a Wednesday, 2 weeks before Christmas. But no, the final is going to be on, I should say, the second leg, the decisive second leg here in Bogotá on the 27th of December. So will it be América de Cali or Santa Fe? We shall see. Sticking with football as well, it's looking like La Selección de Colombia are going to poach their man back from a rival selección in Chile. Reinaldo Rueda is the man they want, and it looks like it's, well, I'm not going to say it's a done deal, but it seems fairly close. It's a bit closer than the Brexit negotiations and trade deals anyway.
I've given up hope on that. I mean, well, Jesus in the president of the Federación is currently self-isolating because he's got COVID, and Queiroz is kicking off. He's saying, the facts show that they took a rash decision to get rid of me. I think at the end of the day, Carlos, anyone who watched those matches would say that was nipping the problem in the bud, much rather than a rash decision.
Yeah, well, of course, it's always the easy option to get rid of a coach, and especially in international football, because you can't really change the players at your disposal. You might be able to unearth another few, but you can't go to the market and buy more. So yeah, I mean, once losing those last two games, the writing was on the wall for our friend. But we'll see with Reinaldo Rueda. And then in a strange turn up for the books, I see Blue Radio was reporting that if Rueda does come to Colombia, his replacement in Chile could be, give a guess.
Carlos Queiroz.
No, go back one more.
Craggy face himself, El Profe.
Peckerman. Yeah, he could go to Chile. Again, it's all speculation, idle speculation, but it will be interesting to see. Right, guys, we're going to get, I guess, onto our preview of 2021, looking into our crystal ball. Are you warming it up there, Oli? Have you got it?
All right, mate.
Yeah, I mean your crystal ball, nothing else. A bit early on a Thursday yet to be thinking about anything else. But because we're going to, we will live and die by our predictions here. So maybe we'll sit on the fence for a lot of these things, but we'll give it a lash. Anyway, we mentioned at the start, of course, that the vaccine and all that kind of stuff, the whole year is probably going to be predicated on this, that how successful the rollout is and how open Colombia becomes and the rest of the world, to see how everything then is really going to lead off that, really. So let's get into that in detail then.
Well, actually, I mean, just before that, Brendan, sorry to interrupt you there.
Yeah.
What are you looking forward in 2021? What are your kind of, like, in your personal life, I guess, what are you looking forward to?
Oh yeah, well, I was gonna dodge that question. That's no, in fairness. Okay, yeah, let's get the personal stuff, and we invite other people too. It's not all about the economy and the macro picture. We look at the micro level as well, in terms of what things are you looking forward to, or what things do you fear for 2021? Do let us know. What I'm looking forward to, well, something very personal. It would be wrong of me to say I've had a very difficult year. I took a decision in January before the pandemic to leave a full-time job behind. But now I do need to look at having something steadier coming in. But I am working on a podcast project, and I would like to think that in early January, so very early in the new year, that I'll have good news on that with one of the national broadcasters. And I think if we do it well, it can be a success. So that's one thing I am hoping for, that we can get that off the ground. And if that's early in January, then that will be kind of my vaccine. We'll see from there then where it will lead to. How about yourself?
Well, I've got a number of things I'm looking forward to. Redoing the bathrooms, woo! And hopefully ticking off the 32 departments. That was my big aim for this year, but obviously it wasn't possible to travel. But I'm hoping to finally get down to Balpés and Guainía, and thus having visited all 32 departments. That's my big aim. And maybe picking up some ghost shrimp for my aquarium. That's a bit more modest.
Perhaps for 2021, when we come back to Bogotá Nights, you can set up your camera so that the aquarium is in the background.
Yes, I'm hoping to. But at this time of night, they do like to sleep, you know.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, and they can't shut their eyes, so it's not easy for them to sleep.
Yeah, interesting. By the way, on your 32 departamentos, if you do manage it, you might join our good friend Chris Bell and get an El Espectador article written about you then, if you do that. Or even Dominic Wolf and one of those influencers. The sky is the
nationality. Give me nationality. I want a passport.
Okay. Anyway, it wouldn't be a Bogotá Nights without Paula Andrea Perez Rubiano contacting us, and we thank you for doing it, Paula. And she says, as a teacher, are you a teacher of English? I take it you are, considering your English is very good. I predict online classes will stay longer than expected next year. Maybe for the whole year. Yeah,
I would say Paula's probably spot on there. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it depends maybe where. A lot of the poorer public schools will have no other choice, if they want to get kids back getting a decent education, to have in-person classes. And that's something, again, we will, I guess. Well, will we talk about that now, Oli?
Yeah, why not? I think there's two bits to this. Well, it's interesting that you say you think state schools will be going back, and actually I do agree with you. But actually, quite a lot of the kind of poshest sort of private schools for kids, I understand, have been really pushing presential classes. We don't say that in English. Face-to-face.
In-person classes.
In-person classes, yeah. It's a nice word, presential. Very useful. Certainly at our university. Yeah, I mean, I think that, our university is not going back really next semester. So it'll be the second half of the year when we kind of expect to be going properly back to classes, hopefully, but we really don't know.
Yeah, well, I'm just going on what Claudia Lopez said, I think, at the end of November, like that well, by hook or by crook. She certainly didn't say that expression, but I'll give it to her. That the public schools do have to open. And again, like I've seen this college that's next to me here, like about 174 or whatever near that canyon. It's just been closed for the last basically year. So all the children that go to it around the barrio, like what kind of an education are they getting? A few bits of homework exercises, which parents don't seem to have the time to help with and can't help with.
I've seen plenty of kids, walking around the streets, clearly connected to a class. I mean, there's a question over the quality of education, but also the effect it has on parents' lives, and all kinds of stuff like that. Yeah, it's very much a suboptimal situation.
Yeah, and of course, then this ties in again with how we are with the coronavirus COVID-19 situation, because if the schools go back, where we still have relatively high number of cases and the occupancy levels of the intensive care unit beds are high, and okay, children themselves aren't at risk, but it's these children going back into houses with 3 or 4 generations under the same roof. We could see an awful mess in February or March, and back to severe lockdowns, but maybe like they did in Northern Europe, keep the schools open, but lock down everything else, which is hasn't happened here. We've locked the schools and kind of kept everything else ticking over, more or less. So we could get
as a sort of childless troll, I would say I'm pretty happy with that. I'd rather bars were open for me and children stick at home with their with their parents. That suits me. But
always thinking about the future generations, Ollie. How good of you.
Yeah, always got it on.
Well, another thing slightly linked to that I want to mention, and I know this is another bugbear of yours, but I was reading a BBC article last week, and they talked about the chances of car ownership now climbing post-pandemic, as people will be fearful to take public transport. Already, you could say, Bogotá was chock-a-block with private cars on normal days in the city. So if schools go back and the city goes back to 100%, if we can call it that, in early February or whatever, what kind of chaos is the city going to be in if there is that fear to take public transport? Because no, I'm safer in my own little car.
Well, I mean, Bogotá isn't Western Europe, let's not forget. People are still using public transport. Go and get on a Transmilenio or an SETP provisional. Provisional. Provisional obviously means something different in Spanish. I thought provisional was like in English. It meant, provisional, temporary, short-term measure.
It means about 20 years.
Yeah, like quattro por mil, yeah. Anyway, farcical.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. So car ownership, here we won't see a rise in car ownership. Unlike
we will, because we have done for the past kind of 10 years. So yes, absolutely, car ownership will. Well, actually, one thing that could save us is people might not have the money to enter the market to become a driver. That's one of the saving graces about economic problems, is it might force people away from cars, hopefully. But don't forget, car usage in many countries was coming down, many Western European countries was coming down pre-pandemic. That's actually the opposite in Colombia, of course, where it's skyrocketing. It has been skyrocketing. Skyrocketing,
okay. Just in Bogotá in general then, are we in for a kind of messy year in the city? And I mean, I remember my early years here, they were still doing up around Septima and building that tunnel to what is now is it the Las Aguas terminal or whatever you call it there on the Transmilenio. There was a lot of construction work around Colpatria when I used to live in the centre, and it was kind of messy and noisy, and it wasn't nice. Of course, now it's lovely. You have to endure that pain to enjoy the days afterwards. But with the construction of the metro meant to get, it's already underway, isn't it? In certain sectors, supposedly anyway. Is it going to kind of, like a messy city, noisy again? And if you don't need to work in an office, would it be better to get out?
Yeah, I don't know. It'll be really interesting to see what what happens with all those things. Construction is a nice, easy way for governments to invest. Building metros, building schools, that's an easy way to get employment figures up.
Yeah, and that kind of ties in again, like, obviously the world economy, well, we've seen, record sums pumped into economies. What is it in the US? 2 trillion, all these IOUs floating around. Now, some people say they're numbers on a page and we'll never pay them back when you have these fiat currencies not tied to anything. So we'll just keep
don't go medicine foreigner on me, Brendan.
Creating debt that we'll never pay back. Well, numbers on a page. But,
yeah, blockchain, mate. It's all about blockchain. Sorry, go on.
Well, yeah, or Bitcoin. I don't know. Anyway, I'm certainly not into those. Let's go back to the gold standard. That's what I say. I jest. No, but we talked about this briefly last week. And again, construction being a prime example. In the poorer barrios, a lot of the guys, the men, are employed in construction. And there probably hasn't been a big fall off in that. Not from anecdotally, from what I see anyway. So, while we can talk about all the negative effects of the pandemic, how badly has it affected Colombia? And will we see if things start to turn a corner in terms of the vaccine, cases are down, deaths are down, that a bit of a spending splurge perhaps in 2021?
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting. I mean, the thing about Colombia is that the grey economy is so enormous. We're not talking about the black economy. We're not talking about cocaine dealings and whatnot. But there are so many informal workers, and there are so many sort of unregistered deals and whatnot, that it's really hard to know just how big the impact is going to be. Now, it's easy to see that some businesses have disappeared or had trouble, definitely. But what's going to be really hard to work out is, we heard a lot in March and April of people kind of saying, it's unsustainable. If we have a lockdown, there's going to be many more deaths. There's going to be riots, blah, blah. People can't afford to not work. That really hasn't happened. The police, the anti-police riots in September, that was a completely different thing. I mean, maybe lockdown fatigue playing into it, definitely. But I don't know. Yeah, I would say you're right. Anecdotal evidence again, Brendan, but I was down near Galerías yesterday. I was up near Santa Barbara today. Shops look as busy as ever.
Yeah, I agree. I cycled down actually well into the center of the city yesterday. Not yesterday, the day before yesterday, in 18 kilometers cycling. Yeah, like the movement in the city and everything, it did seem kind of normal. But yeah, it's difficult to really know. But you have the headline figures. But to me, in Colombia, a lot of the time they don't mean an awful lot. It's what's below the surface. I just want to give I feel like being a DJ here, but not a shout out, but people who've taken the time to write in. Thanks for that. Angela was just saying that provisional used to mean provisional here, but it's changed in Bogotá. They have a new dictionary definition for it. And Jacob Tom said, amazing how cars hold value in Colombia. Really? Because they generally say in our neck of the woods, the minute you buy a car, you've lost money because of depreciation and everything. But,
I mean, it depends where Jacob's from, I guess. I always find it really bizarre that so many foreigners arrive in Colombia, and it tends to be Americans, actually. They arrive, and they seem to be very surprised that Colombia doesn't behave like their home country. And you kind of go, actually, Colombia is more representative of kind of most of the world, actually, in many ways.
Okay. Just going to move on to another sector, kind of still with the economy and money and jobs. Obviously, the tourism and hospitality sector has been badly hit. In one of my earliest podcasts this year, when the pandemic hit, was with the owner of the famous Cranky Crack hostel in La Candelaria, Andy Farrington, and he told me, he had a contingency plan in until June of 2021, and that was still people were a little bit positive that things might pick up again at the back end of the year, but Andy, I think, proved to be quite prescient with that. will we see tourism numbers pick up? And of course, this isn't dependent on Colombia alone. This is dependent on what happens around the world. So, what, like, to me, I don't see it picking up to anything near pre-COVID levels next year.
Yeah, really, you've hit the nail on the head there, Brendan, when you say it depends on other countries. Colombia doesn't have enough internal tourism to sustain the numbers it was building up to in terms of hotel capacity and whatnot. So, yeah, it's going to be a real problem here if, let's be honest, rich nations don't continue traveling over to spend their money. Yeah, that's going to be massively, massively problematic. And there's lots of factors to this. Are flights going to continue being very cheap? Are airports going to be as much of a hassle? Are people going to be worried about being trapped overseas? There's lots of reasons people might not want to travel over oceans, especially. And yeah, that doesn't necessarily bode well for Colombia.
Yeah.
On the other hand, the one country that supplies Colombia with most of its tourism is the United States of America. Well, certainly it's rich tourism. And, the United States of America notoriously doesn't care all that much about COVID. So that could be a positive.
Well, there is going to be a change of president there in January. The Electoral College have had their say, and Donald Trump didn't manage to stop that. So his hopes of staying in the White House, unless he just refuses to leave, are pretty low. A Biden presidency, a lot of the time in Ireland anyway, we kind of cheer when there's a Democrat in the White House, and we're not as optimistic when there's a Republican. And that's certainly been the case with Joe Biden because he's got Irish connections. In Colombia, the thing is, and we spoke about this yesterday when we were talking, doing our planning for today. Biden will probably will look to re-engage the United States with the world, which Donald Trump really didn't want to do. He kind of did his foreign affairs stuff that he had to do, but didn't go any further than that. Biden will more than likely look to reassert American dominance, and he could start with maybe having a look at what's happening in Venezuela, and that could spell problems here.
That's right. For all Trump's many myriad faults, he really was hands-off generally when it came to, certainly by American president standards. People will point to assassinations in Iran and things like that, but let's be honest, he didn't go off and kick off a war, which the two previous presidents seemed fairly happy to do. He postured a lot. There was a lot of saber rattling about Venezuela, but nothing got done, and there was never really any threat of an invasion or, any of these sort of more far-fetched things. The really big question is, like you say, does Biden want to show off a bit of power? I suspect he thinks he can't get away with it.
Now, there will be those that say the more progressive, or we might say liberal wing on the Democrat side. They may not want to get involved in Venezuela, but on a topic that I discussed on my latest podcast last week about coca and the legalization of that. And this is something that is actually being debated in Colombia at this moment in time. So the policy of fumigation against the coca crop here, maybe that will be, it depends on which side of the fence you're on in this, a positive if you think that coca shouldn't be deemed as an illegal crop, that the United States might take a lighter line on that.
Well, coca and cocaine are two very different beasts. Let's be clear about that. Colombia doesn't seem to use coca in the same way as, say, Bolivia does, where it's quite commonly taken. I know people say, "Oh, you can buy coca tea." Yeah, sure, you can buy coca tea down in, the Chorro de Quevedo. But let's be honest, Brendan. I think we all know that Colombians don't wake up every, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Colombians don't sit around and go, "Oh, I'll have a cup of coca tea now." They might have a Pony Malta or something, maybe a poker, but they're certainly not going to be tucking into a coca tea. Your average, person on the street.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point. But yeah, it should be interesting. Another international development that we alluded to earlier, but close, well, not close, in your own neck of the woods, in Brexit. Well, it affects me as well as an Irishman. But you think this could spell opportunities as well for Colombia?
Oh yeah, absolutely. For Colombia, it's definitely a positive. So it opens up trade to the UK in a much bigger way than it previously did, in that the UK now doesn't have to source Colombia's competitive product. Now, okay, when we talk about stuff like coffee, this doesn't really make an impact. But when we talk about things like flowers, it really does, because at the moment, Britain's kind of shoved towards dealing with the Netherlands, because obviously they're an EU partner and they have a great deal of flowers. Now we're pretty open to go to Colombian flowers, depending on transport costs and so forth, if that's effective. So a lot of agricultural produce at the moment can't quite make it into the UK, might be. So yeah, it could be positive for Colombia. Of course, studying in the UK is just about to get a lot cheaper. The pound is already sliding. Visiting the UK will get easier. Visas won't get any more difficult for Colombians. They'll get more difficult for EU members. They won't get more difficult for Colombians.
Yeah, it's exactly the same. And the Republic of Ireland, even though we're part of the EU, we're not part of the Schengen. So Colombians still need a visa to visit the Republic or the UK.
And again, the sort of weird arrangements that the Republic and the UK have had for years, a lot of that's going to continue on.
Yeah, well, anyway, I was just going to say, if Colombia's love affair, or seemingly they have a love affair for the Union Jack, the moniker for the British flag, is anything to go by, Colombia and Britain could become great trading partners. You see the Union Jack all over the place here, or maybe I notice it more than others.
Jokes aside, Colombia and the United Kingdom have pretty much always had a good relationship. We fully supported Colombia's independence, not through any particular love of Colombian independence or belief in it. Quite the opposite. We still had plenty of colonies at the time, Ireland included, but just to irritate the Spanish, who were our rivals. But actually, going on from there, the British embassy in Bogotá is a relatively big deal regionally, because of course we can't have embassies in countries like Argentina. We've got problems with countries like Mexico, Venezuela, because of various ex-colonial disputes. So yeah, we'll see.
Okay. Yeah, well, speaking of the international element, by the way, Jacob, he's watching us in New Zealand, and we had our Giselle in New York. So yeah, we're touching all corners of the globe, and a COVID-free practically New Zealand as well. Maybe I'll head there for Christmas if they let me in.
It does. I have heard the orcs are immune to it. So.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll get on to Jacinda Ardern. We're good friends. Well, we'll come to politics locally here. As we mentioned, 2021, we should see a few horses saddled for that race towards the Casa de Nariño. You've mentioned Marta Lucía Ramirez as a potential candidate to be the first woman president. Did you mean that in 2022, or should we look more towards?
Why not?
Tomás Uribe, is he a serious contender, or is it just kind of testing the water?
Santos. One thing I think that's very interesting about Duque is that Colombian politics is changing. This whole idea of conservatives and liberals, that's very much fallen by the wayside. It's the candidate that matters, or the party, the party, and that can be a relatively new party like the Centro Democrático, or it can be a particularly charismatic candidate like Gustavo Petro. I would suspect, though, Brendan, the real big Marta Lucía, we're not going to know about her, I think, until the Centro Democrático does its choosing, which might be early 2022, but we'll see.
But of course, she's conservative, so she could potentially run against the Centro Democrático candidate.
As a conservador, yeah, she could, or others. I mean, I find this very bizarre. This idea of people being so malleable about their parties. I find it. I find it difficult to trust people that just jump around like this.
Well, there's obviously a clamoring to bring back in some quarters Jose Pekerman to La Selección. So could we bring back Juan Manuel Santos? It wasn't so bad those 8 years, was it?
Well, why not bring back Alberito?
Yeah. Well, I stopped there exactly. We'll quickly. I know we're coming near the end, so. Well, I was just going to ask you: is there any left of field candidate? Like, can you pick out somebody that you might think has a chance that right now nobody's really talking about? I mean, it's very difficult, I know. But do you think, like any of the other candidates who ran for mayor last year, like Galan, would he put his hat in the ring?
If he gets, if he gets a sort of backing from somebody big. I mean, don't forget, whoever Cambio Radical back is automatically going to command quite a few votes just from sort of established blocks. And of course, whoever the Centro Democratico pick will be a strong favourite. Regardless of who that is, we don't know who that will be up until this point. I think it's early for Martin Santos, but who knows? There could be a shock. Next year definitely could be a tumultuous one. Again, you mentioned Tomás Uribe. He definitely looks like he's making a run, I would say.
Yeah, and if his daddy anoints him, well, that's guaranteed a nice chunk of votes, as you said. We'll finish up with sport. We saw today that Liga Águila have announced details for next year, and this might be a portent of what's to come. They say there are going to be no fans at games until the middle of next year, and we're meant to have a new Copa or a rescheduled Copa America in 2020.
Or are we?
Yeah, will it go ahead? Will it be kicked to touch again, which means it won't go ahead probably until 2023?
Yeah, or just cancel it might be the best thing at this point. Yeah, look, that's going to be really hard to see. I mean, I would probably assume that's less to do with Colombia and more to do with other regional powers. Argentina and Brazil are having a pretty rough time of it, COVID-wise at the moment. So, yeah, who knows?
Yeah, not looking good. Well, I guess we might as well wrap this up because our producer is telling us time is ticking, and we do want to wish everybody Feliz Navidad y Prospero Año. So
I just want to mention one thing very quickly, Brendan, but just a reminder to any of our readers out there, remember El Nino is properly here now. We've just had a tiny rainy season. Might be worth conserving water this next year, for the good of all of us. Good point. And I've seen lots of leaks around here. They should tidy them up. Just finally, considering she's been a constant practically throughout Bogotá Nights of 2020, Paula Andrea Perez-Rubiano with the final comment. Well, I won't read it all out, but you're not a fan of Martha Lucia Ramirez anyway. That's pretty clear. But yeah, again, guys, thanks for listening. We've had fun doing this year. We'll be taking, I guess, a 2-week break at least, but we'll see you sometime in early January. In January,
and it'll be onwards and upwards. So, guys, enjoy the festivities. Have a safe one, a happy one, and that's it from us.
See you in 2021. Bye-bye.